Welcome to episode 2 of our night AC Variac that we're building. Hey folks, this is our completed Variac here, with one exception. The only thing that we have to do yet is I have to replace this meter. So this is a tip for you guys when you if you try to build this. Your voltmeter that you get, of course it's all AC, you want to get something from 0 to 150. Your amp meter, you want something from 0 to 3. This meter goes from 0 to 20 amps. So if I have 1 amp, it's going to be like hardly moving the needle. So you want to get something that's going to be more within the range. And of course, we're using a 3 amp fuse in this device. And our Variac is a 3 amp Variac, so we don't want more than 3 amps. So a 0 to 3 amp meter is going to be perfect. And I've got that coming, so I have to replace that. But that's simple to pop in when you get it. So our unit is now complete. You'll notice that I did replace some of the switches here. Let's turn the unit on. Make sure we're in AC mode. So we're all the way over the side. We'll turn it on. And you'll see that our meter goes right up here to 120 volts. Let's zoom in just a little bit. And that's great. And you'll notice that the Variac knob does absolutely nothing. All right, there's no bearing. And what we're going to do now is we're going to switch over to Variac mode. I've got this down to 0. And you'll notice that our meter is at 0. And let's turn this up slowly. You see, here comes our voltage on the Variac side. Perfect. All right, so we're not testing anything, obviously. One thing you'll notice right here is I've got this bulb holder here. I put a little holster on the side of this thing. And this is where our dim bulb tester goes, right here. So we're gonna knock this down to neutral for a second. Pop that in. And if I were to plug in something that would draw some current, that bulb is going to light up. And we're going to put this in AC mode. And of course, when you do that, the bulb is not going to light up because we have it in normal operation. But if I flip this switch to bypass, everything's going to pass through this bulb. So let's see what happens. Nothing happens because there's no load. But what happens if we put a load on this thing? Well, let's see. I have one of these plug-in meters. Let's see what happens when we plug that in. You can see here we're at 118 volts, which is great, but there's really still no current draw on this thing. So we're going to plug a little electric motor in. I'm not sure how many amps it really is, but I want to demonstrate that the bulb itself does really work. So let me get that set up and we will be right back. Okay, we have our Dremel tool, of all things, connected here. Let's turn that on real quick and watch the bulb. See that? So we're drawing current, and I don't know if you were able to observe the needle here, but we definitely went down. So we know that this works. And of course we put it in Variac mode. And we're only currently at about, let's go up to 75 volts. Let's see what happens. Yeah, we got a little bit of activity there. So you'll see that the dim bulb tester works. And now if I turn that off, that switch, and go back to the Dremel tool, you see that we're good to go. Okay? So the unit itself is working, which is great news. And we're good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through the inside, show you how it's wired, explain everything that's in there, and I think we're good. So you'll see I've got this all painted nicely, and in the video that you're going to see in a moment, it'll show you how I did the decals and how I did all this stuff. I'll talk a minute about the parts that we've got here from a sourcing perspective. These 2 meters I was able to get off Amazon. The Variac I got off of eBay, and these things can go anywhere from $30 to $300. I was very lucky to get this one. It's a Stako Type 291 3 amp 120 volt or 130 volt Variac. I was able to get it for $30. Really cheap. You got to just shop for those things. It's not easy to get. These are 2 AC bulbs that I had. I didn't have to buy those. The fuse holder came with it. Just had to put a 3 amp fuse in there. This is a replacement power switch that I put in, and this is a 600 volt switch. We're good. This is a double pole, double throw switch that we're using here for our AC line and AC Variac. So it's on, off, on. So watch the meter. Let's go to the center position. It goes to 0. over there we're on line. Okay, this is really just a simple light bulb socket that has a plug on it. Goes in here. Here's another on-off switch, simple single pole, single throw on-off switch, and then we have two chassis mount outlets. That's the whole thing. That's all you need. You can get all this stuff on Amazon if you really want to, except for this Variac. This you have to get on eBay, or if you know somebody else that has one. So let's stop this. I'll open this up, show you what's going on inside, and then we'll be done with the video. So here we are in episode 2, and what you see here is I've printed out labels that that are going to end up being decals. So you'll see that I've got just pieces of paper here placed on top here, just to get a feel for how it would look. So that's what we're going to do. We're probably going to end up having to move this one down here, because I think the meter, when I install it later, is probably going to be in the way, so that'll be there. But this is what we're looking at. I also had a question from JP, or was it George? I think it was George, sorry, about these switches. If these switches are capable of handling AC. The answer is yes, but I don't have a way to confirm that. So I did order some switches that I know are capable of handling AC, and they'll be here today as well. So we'll probably end up replacing these before we start wiring it. As far as the decal process goes, there's special paper that you can buy on Amazon. It's decal paper that goes into your inkjet printer. Doesn't work on laser, works on inkjet. And you can get clear or you can get white background. So what I've done here is I've taken the decals that I've got laid out here and I printed them on that paper. And it's right here, right there. And after you print this stuff, what you do is you spray it with some I think Rust-Oleum clear enamel. If you don't do that, when you put them in the water, all the ink is going to run. So I've just sprayed them with the clear enamel. We're going to let it dry for a couple of hours, and then I'll be able to trim them down to size and start to apply them to the case. It's that simple, right? The key is you have to spray it with the clear enamel, because if not, the ink will run. So later on today, we'll be doing the decals on this thing, and this is what it'll look like. It'll be very clear. There won't be a white background, and I think it'll look pretty decent. All right? So next step for us is going to be to install the meters and the switches and start the wiring. So we'll get to that. We're going to let that decal sheet dry, and let's move forward. We'll be back. Okay, we got our meters in here, and we're gonna install them. I got them reversed here, obviously. We want volts here and amps over here. We're going to install them first, but the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove everything again from here. Very simple with screws, and I'm going to apply the decals, and then I'm going to put a shot of clear coat over this entire faceplate, so it protects the paint that we did here, and it'll also protect the decals. So we're going to remove everything. We know how it looks. Very simple to do. We'll also put in our new switches. I told you this morning when I did this that I was going to replace the switches as a precaution, so we'll put our new switches in, and then we'll drill the holes and all that stuff before we before we wrap it up for these meters and stuff. But that's going to be the next plan. Some of you have asked how to do the decals. Again, I'll show you. I've actually trimmed the decals here to size. Here's the one that's going to go down here. That's the decal itself. It's just decal paper, and that's the one that's going to go right there. But we're going to get all this stuff removed first. We'll apply them. I'll show you how to apply one of them, and I don't have to show you the rest. And we'll go from there. All right? We'll be back. Okay, we're at a point now where we're going to do our first decal. Before I do that, you'll notice that I've got these holes drilled out here for the meters. I made a template on a piece of cardboard, just like this. That's how I transferred the holes here. So first thing we're going to do is the logo, and it says Night AC Variac. And I made sure this was sprayed with the clear enamel, so I know the ink's not going to come off. It could. We may make a mistake here, so you'll come along with me for the ride. Here's a container of warm water, not hot, warm. And the plan is going to be to mount this thing right around, let's see, where do we want it? I'd say right around here. And we're going to center it between these two lines. Okay? We have a tweezer. That's going to come in handy. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this in the water for about 20 seconds. Let's do that. Let's make sure it gets nice and submerged. And what the objective here is we want that paper on the back to soften up. Okay, I think that's good. Okay. We want to have a clean towel with us so we can wipe the water off. I'm going to leave that in there just for another second. Just want to make sure that paper is saturated. It won't be any harm if you leave it in there too long. Okay, here's our decal. We're going to position it around where we want it, and we're going to pull the paper out, like so.
Displaying Ron's sugar now.
And when we do that, the decal is applied.
Your sugar level is 99.
Now we have a little bit of time here to move this thing around to where we want it. And I noticed that we want to come this way just a tiny little bit. We want to make sure it's level. I think right about there is on the money. So we're going to blot this thing and get the water out from underneath it. We still have a little bit of time to adjust it. We want to make sure we get any air bubbles out. That's why we're gently pushing down with the rag. And if we zoom in on there it is. Now you're seeing this line here. It's not aligned with this hole. That's perfectly fine because that's not the way the logo is. I do have an equal distance on both sides here. So there's our first logo. We're good to go. So now I'm going to do the rest of these. I'm not going to do it on camera, but you can see how easy that is. Just take your time, patience, and it'll come out nice. So I'm going to get to do the rest of these now. I'll come back when they're done. Then the next step is going to be when this is all completed and dried, we're going to spray it with clear coat and let it dry overnight. And then we're going to install all the components. Okay? Let me get to the rest of the decals. Just an update. Here's our AC Variac. Here's our dim bulb tester. Now we're going to do the outlet. We're going to do the dim bulb bypass. And then we're going to, let's see, what else do we have? Our indicator lights, AC line active and Variac line active. Simple. Be back. Okay, our decals are all done. Here's our AC line active. Here's our Variac active. Here's our AC line and Variac line switch. Here's our logo. Here's our dim bulb tester logo. Here's our AC test outlet, and here's our dim bulb bypass. So now we're going to take this thing and we're going to put a nice couple of coats of clear coat on it. It'll protect everything. And then we're going to start installing components. All right, I hope you found that useful. I'll be back. Okay, we have our faceplate clear coated. Excuse me. And we have our meters mounted. And we are going to start building. So I'm going to let this sit overnight. I just want to be extra careful that this thing is cured properly. So I'm not going to start messing around with the other controls. So tomorrow we'll come back and we'll start putting everything else back in. And then we'll be ready to do some wiring. So we're coming along really nice. It looks pretty professional, if I must say so myself. And I can't talk today. But we're getting there. It's close. Not perfect, but it's close. Like I noticed I put this decal on a little bit crooked, but I just have to tilt my head and it's straight. So even a clock is right twice a day if the battery stops. So I'll come back and let you know when we're ready to do the rest of it, and we'll go from there. Be back. All right, guess what time it is, kids? It's howdy doody time. We're going to start wiring this thing. Before we get started, I want to remind you that working with electronics is dangerous and can be lethal, especially something like this where you're dealing with AC. Anything that you see in this video, you have to proceed with your own risk. Make sure you take the proper safety precautions, and if you don't know what you're doing, don't do it. All right? So with that said, we're going to start our wiring. And I've decided that I'm going to start on the right here on this switch, which is the on-off switch, the power switch. And from the power switch, we obviously we go to the fuse, right? We've got the fuse in line. And then we have a connection here on the Variac. The hot side of the lead goes to pin 1 on this Variac. And the common side goes to pin 4. That's our first connection. And then we're going to work our way up to this switch up here, which is our line and our variac switch. We're also going to make our connections for our amp meters and our voltmeter, and of course our outlets right here. This is our dim bulb, and this is going to be our dim bulb bypass, and this is going to be our utility outlet that we use for testing. So let me get started on the wiring. I'm not going to do all the wiring live here. I'm going to situate this thing. I'm going to get a drawing for you that you can follow along with. And I'm also going to post a link to the drawing in the comments, in the description of the field of the video. So we'll be back. Okay, here's our unit. First thing I want to point out is you'll notice when I put the power cord in here, I did use a Molex connector so that this thing is easily serviceable, and I have the other connector right here. All right, so now I can take this thing out and service it and put it back in instead of hardwiring it. So let's start from the beginning. So here's our power switch. So we have our hot line coming in right here. It's this blue wire right there, if you could see it. Comes into our power switch. The other side goes off to the top of our fuse. Okay? One side of our AC light goes to the other side of the fuse, and also goes over to the common spot on one position of our double pole, double throw switch. Okay? Also, the hot lead from our variac goes over to that same connection. Okay? On the other side of that switch, remember it's a double pole, double throw, we have a connection that goes to our amp meter. We go through our amp meter, and we come around here to this outlet, right here. And this outlet, we come around here to the second outlet. Here's our neutral. I just found a wire here I need to fix. And we have this wire that comes around here to our voltmeter. And in our voltmeter, on the other side, we come around here back to neutral. So we're basically just completing the circuit. The only thing that's unusual here is this switch. So this is the dim bulb outlet. So I have a switch right across these two leads of this outlet that's either open or closed. And based on the position of that, it's going to determine if the circuit goes through the switch or goes bypasses it. I mean through the bulb or bypasses it. So that's pretty much what we've got going on here. I'm going to put the schematic in the description as well so that you can take a look at it. But this is exactly what we have going on here. It did stump me a little bit from a wiring perspective, but fairly simple. I'm also going to show you how I wired the switch, because that actually did confuse me for a bit. It took me a while to get my head around that, so I'm going to show you how I did it. So a double pole, double throw switch is what we used, and there's really two sections. There's the section in green and the section in red. So the center is from the fuse and the hot lead from the variac, I showed you that, and one goes to the amp meter. On this side we have the output from the variac, which is terminal number 3, and then we have a variac light, which goes to this side. If you use the switch in this position, we have the fuse and the variac lead, and we have the line light. That's pretty much it. So that's how I wired it. Okay? There's 6 connections on that switch. So that's the story. One thing that I did for safety, if you notice I have a piece of Velcro here, and the reason why I did that is because if you look at this case, there's a handle inside. See that handle? Well, I know it's going to clear it, but I don't want to take any chances. So I created a piece of cardboard with some Velcro. I'm going to put that right like that, and that will cover up the switch and make sure that we don't have any problems with that. And then we don't have to worry about it. So that's just going to be there for extra protection. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fix this wire first of all. That's an easy fix. And then I'm going to put this thing back in the case, and we're going to do a wrap up. Okay? And I don't know if you caught that wire, but here it is. It's the wire that goes to our Variac active light. It goes right here. We shall be back. Alright, so let's talk about what we learned here. So what we learned is that you can use a lot of equipment that you may have laying around and build something that's really useful. For me, I'm eliminating a piece of test equipment, so I've combined a Variac and a dim bulb tester into one unit, which is really good. And it's something that's functional. I've got a really good amp meter, which I really never had before. And I'll be able to use that equipment really, really well. So, you know, if you are able to source it, again, you can get most of the parts on eBay from the case perspective. You could use any case that you have. It doesn't have to be a night battery eliminator. It's just that it's really convenient to have those holes already pre-drilled, and you just have to mount components to it. You can get a good price on that as well. I've seen them on there for like 15 bucks. So if you decide to build one, go for it. Just be careful. And for me, I just want to thank all of you who gave me your comments and questions. You had questions about the switches and if they're capable, and you had questions about decals, and I hope I answered that for you. And of course, I want to thank Brendan, who also helped me along the way with some of the wiring. I was having a brain fog yesterday; couldn't figure out how to wire that line Variac switch, but we got through it. So that's about it. So thanks for coming along for the ride. And the next series that we're going to begin is for our Bendix radio, the PAR 80. And I know Bill, old 64 Goat's been waiting for that, so we're going to do that next. So thank you so much, everybody. Hope you enjoy this. Take care.